I was in South Africa a month ago. The buzz, the sense of optimism around your presidency is incredible. Now, you talked, as you were campaigning for the job, about South Africa being a 3% economy this year, a 3% GDP economy this year. Is that going to happen?
Well, we certainly want it to happen, and we're going to make every effort to make sure that we get close to that. I've heard that the IMF has now revised their own figures upwards, and our Treasury has also revised them upwards, and I'm hoping to revise mine upwards as well.
Right.
So I think it is possible. What we need to do to make sure that we do reach higher levels of growth is to increase investment in our economy. And that is why I've decided that I'd like us to raise $100 billion over the next 5 years, and I've appointed 4 investment envoys who will go around the world to campaign for investments to come into South Africa. This will culminate in an investment conference that I intend to hold towards the end of the year, September or so, where I will invite committed investors to come and invest. So I'm doing a book build of investments leading up to that conference. And already we've been receiving very good indications from a number of investors. So that should be able to lift a number of boats and to generate growth. Some of the reforms that we said we would embark on, we've already started the process of doing so. So a combination of increasing investor confidence as well as investments should be able to generate growth.
Those 4, as they go around the world, what message will they be taking with them about the incentives that you can offer them to invest in South Africa? What's the pitch?
Well, the pitch is going to be we open for business. We embarking on reforms that are going to lead to South Africa becoming even more attractive than it has been. We will have incentives for various sectors of our economy, depending on which sector one wants to invest in. We will have well-crafted incentives that will attract people. Yes, some of them may well be tax incentives, some of them may well be the general industrial incentives that are given rise to by particular sectors. So the pitch will be, we're serious, we're creating a good climate for investments to come into our country, we'll give you good incentives, we'll give you good security, and we will make sure that the concerns that you may well have will also be addressed. And we will ensure that, our infrastructure stays in place. We still remain a very well infrastructured country, if you like. We've got a very good regulatory framework and a legal framework. So all those things, a combination of all of them, will give people a really good package and an offering for them to come and invest in South Africa.
One of the factors that I'm sure those investors will think about is the level of the rand. I'm looking at it now on my Bloomberg's, trading at 11.95 against the US dollar. It's up 20% since November, which is kind of coincides with your arrival. Let's talk a little bit about kind of whether you're comfortable with where it is now. Is that appreciation a reflection of international sentiment towards South Africa being more positive, or would you be more comfortable with a cheaper rand that may make the investments that you're talking about a little easier to make?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword in that the rand where it is now reflects the level of confidence that the world has in South Africa, because they can see that South Africa is going somewhere. But for exporters from our own country, the stronger rand is not so positive for them because they bring in fewer rands. So we need to find a balance. And
is it balanced now?
It's near the balance. It's near the balance. It's not yet quite there, but it's near the balance. But it's a double-edged sword. Sure. Yeah.
One of the things that obviously people will look at very carefully is the issue of expropriation of land.
Yes.
And this is an issue that I hear time and time again when people talk about South Africa. Where do you sit on it? Where does the ANC sit on it? Is it going to happen? And what message do you think it communicates to, again, those investors that are thinking about South Africa and the country's attitude towards property rights? You talk about the institutions, you talk about the governance framework that exists. Kind of where does that sit in that story?
Yeah, I've just come out of a lunch now with a number of investors and potential investors, and we dealt with the whole question of the land. And the land issue needs to be looked at from a historical point of view, where land was taken from our people, and the ANC, the governing party, was formed around the land issue, and as our people were being dispossessed of land. So it's been a historical demand and an objective. 82 years later, the ANC came into power, and as it came into power, it came about with a construct that would deal with the issue of the land in the Constitution in a constructive way for all. And 24 years later, it has not quite worked as we had intended it to work. So it then requires that we should go back to the drawing board, and we are saying that we want all people of South Africa to participate in this process, so that it should never be seen as a unilateral process. So we want a roundtable dialogue, a full discussion on the question of land, because we want the protection of property rights not to be a protection of property rights to a few people only, like it has been in the past. It should be the protection of property rights for all the people of South Africa. And as we deal with the land question, we should say we want to see it as a process through which we grow our economy, because hitherto our economy has been also constrained by the fact that the land, which is a powerful resource, has just been reserved just for a few. So we want to unlock the levers of growth around the land, and we should go back to the original demand which was made by our people, that the land must be shared. So let us share the land. And lastly, I want to say we will do everything we do on the land question within the parameters of our Constitution.